Hi, this is Offbeat Gyan and I'm Deepa Nair. In today's video, I will be talking about the Japanese short story In a Grove. It's a strange story with a very confusing, perplexing conclusion. In a way, it doesn't have a conclusion, it doesn't have a closure. So we'll see about it as we proceed. Moving on, this short story, this Japanese short story has been written by Ryunosuke Akutagawa, and the story has rape, theft, murder, lies, multiple narrators, multiple perspectives, and that makes it very complex. Each person gives a different version of the death of a man inside a grove, and there is no clear conclusion. Different people, including the spirit of the murdered man, provide different versions of the story, and the truth remains unclear until the very end. Each character gives a testimony of the events, and this reveals something about their character. There are also two confessions in the story, along with the testimonies. There is a samurai. A samurai is a Japanese warrior, and his name is Takehiko, and he has been murdered. He is dead. His wife, Masago, has disappeared. A notorious robber called Tajumaru has been arrested for the crime. And the story moves forward in the form of different testimonies and two confessions of the events given by a woodcutter, a traveling Buddhist priest, a policeman, Masago's old mother, then Tajomaru, the notorious robber, Masago herself, and that of the spirit of the murdered man speaking through a medium in the form of answers to the questions of a high police commissioner. The first to testify or answer the questions of the High Police Commissioner is the woodcutter. He was the one who found the dead body in a grove of cedar and bamboo trees. This grove was 150 meters from the Yamashina stage road. He saw the body dressed in a bluish silk kimono and a headdress of the Kyoto style. The man had a single sword wound and the blood had dried up. He also found a rope at the root of the cedar and a comb. The woodcutter says that the dead man must have fought very hard before being killed because the grass and bamboo blades had been completely trampled. The next to testify was a traveling Buddhist priest. He had seen the dead man when he was alive. The man was walking towards Sekiyama with a woman in a lilac-colored dress on horseback. She was on a sorrel, a reddish-colored horse, and she was about 4 feet 5 inches tall. Her face was covered by a scarf. The man had a sword and a bow and around 20 arrows in his quiver. The policeman. The policeman said that he had arrested an infamous robber called Tajumaru. The policeman said that Tajumaru had fallen off his horse and was found on the bridge at Awataguchi at night. The policeman had tried to arrest him the previous day, but somehow he had escaped. And he testifies that Tajumaru was wearing a dark blue silk kimono and a large plain sword. He also had the dead man's bow with leather strips, black lacquered quiver, 17 arrows with hawk feathers. The sorrel horse belonging to the dead man had probably thrown off the robber. It was found grazing near the stone bridge. According to the policeman, Tajomaru had murdered a young woman and a girl some time back when they were visiting the Torib temple. The next testimony is that of an old woman. She is the mother of Masago, the wife of the dead man. She tells the High Police Commissioner that the dead man was her son-in-law. He was a samurai in Kokufu town in Wakasa province. His name was Kanazawa no Tekihiko and he was 26 years old. She says that her son-in-law was a gentleman and he would not get into fights with others. She also tells us that her daughter, Masago, was 19 years old and a spirited and fun loving girl. She had a small, oval shaped face with a mole at the corner of a left eye. She testifies that Tekiko had left for Wakasa with Masago. Finally, Tajomaru confesses to the murder. All the others are testimonies. Tajomaru had seen the ill fated couple the earlier afternoon. He had seen the young woman's face, which he compares to that of a bodhisattva. He desired her and decided immediately that he would make her his own, even if he had to kill her husband. He explains that killing was not a big issue for him. He justifies his act of murder by saying that when a woman is captured, her man has to be killed anyway. He says that he used the sword by his side to kill the man. He also makes a general statement that others kill people with their power and money. They don't bleed like they do when he kills them with the sword. He asks if he is the only killer. So he decided that he would lure the couple, capture the woman, and try not to kill the husband. So Tajomaru lured the couple into the grove by telling them about a hidden treasure below an old mound inside the grove. Tekiko's greed had been aroused, and the couple had gone with Tajomaru into the grove. Tajomaru says that Tekiko was greedy and he went with the robber into the grove. The woman said that she would wait on horseback outside the grove. The two men went inside the thick grove, and as soon as they came to the place where the cedars grew, Tajomaru attacked him from behind. But Tekiko was a samurai, and he was quite strong. Soon Tajomaru overcame him and tied him to the roof of the cedar with a rope. He also closed Tekiko's mouth with bamboo leaves so that he would make no sound. Then Tajomaru leaves the grove and he asks the woman to come and see her husband as he seems to be sick. The woman goes with him, and as soon as she saw her husband tied to the cedar tree, she took out her small sword and started slashing at Tajomaru. But he was alert, and he threw down the sword and he raped her. He had raped her without killing her husband. But then, when he was about to go, she seized his hand and said to him that either he or her husband must die. She was deeply pained and ashamed of having been raped in front of her husband. She said that she was prepared to live with whoever survived. On hearing this, Tajomaru decided to kill the man. The woman's eyes and her appeal made him decide to kill her husband. He wanted to make her his wife. So he decided to kill Takehiko in a fair fight. He untied Takehiko and they took up their swords to fight. It was a tough fight, and the samurai was a very good warrior. Tajomaru himself says that because nobody had been able to fight against him for so long, but Tajomaru had felled Takehiko at the 23rd stroke. When he turned around after killing the man, he found that the woman had run away. He realized that she must have run for help. Then he took the dead man's sword, his bow and arrows, and ran out of the grove where he saw her horse. The next confession is that of the young woman Masago. She is referred to as the woman who had gone to the Shimizu temple. She says that the man in the blue silk kimono or Tajomaru had tied up her husband. He had tried to free himself, but the rope cut into his body. She had tried to run to him, but Tajomaru prevented her. But then she looked at her husband and found him looking at her very coldly, filled with loathing and disgust. The look in her husband's eyes hurt her and shocked her deeply. So she fell down unconscious. She says that when she came back to her senses, Tajomaru had disappeared. When she looked at her husband, he looked at her with shame and disgust. So she said to him that it was better if he too died, since he had witnessed her being raped. She told him that she would follow him soon. He could not speak because his mouth was stuffed with bamboo leaves. But according to her, he seemed to say, "Kill me." So she took her small sword and stabbed her husband in the breast. She soon fainted. When she became conscious, she found that her husband was already dead and his body was still bound in ropes. She untied the rope from his dead body and then she tried to kill herself. But she failed, and since then she had been wandering, hopeless and in dishonor. The last section of the story is the description of events by the murdered man himself, told through a medium. The man says that he tried to send a message to his wife through his eyes, but she had been raped and was looking at her lap, completely hating herself and filled with disgust at herself. The husband said that the robber kept on talking to her, trying to convince her to go with him. He had also justified that he had raped her only because he loved her. He said that his beautiful wife had asked the robber to take her with him. He also said that his wife had left the grove hand in hand with the robber. But then she had turned around and told the robber to kill her husband because she could not live with him as long as her husband was alive. Then the robber had thrown aside the woman and he had asked the husband what he wanted. He asked her if the woman must be killed or saved. The husband had been shocked by his wife's betrayal. The man had no answer to the robber's question, and while he was thinking about the answer, the woman escaped from the grove. After that, the robber took up the samurai's sword, his bow and arrows, and cut the rope on the man's body. He also went away from the grove. Then there was complete silence, and the dead man, speaking through the medium, conveys to us that he heard someone crying. He realized that he himself was crying. The man then took up his wife's small sword, which she had left behind, and stabbed himself in the breast. A lump of blood came up in his throat, and he soon became cold. Soon there was complete silence, and it became dark inside the grove. He felt as if someone was creeping up to him, and then he could see nothing. And that is how the story ends, and we still do not understand who killed Tekiko. Tajomaru and Masago, both of them confess to the murder. Masago's situation is the most complicated. Both her husband and the robber say that she wanted her husband or the robber to die, but she herself has no memory of demanding that the robber kill her husband. She cannot kill herself despite trying to do so. Her narration of events is inconsistent. She says that her husband was wearing a lilac colored kimono, although that was what she was wearing. In the robber's account, he justifies his act by saying that there are greater robbers than him. The samurai forgives the robber, but not his wife. The story does not have closure. It ends on an ambiguous note, and we are left with a very perplexing conclusion because even at the end of the story, we don't know who killed Tekiko. How did the murder happen? Was it a murder or a suicide? I leave you with this. Thank you.